At the heart of every database is, of course, data. Lots and lots of data. Data tables can easily grow to hundreds, thousands, or even millions of records. But trying to manage and make sense of such large amounts of data can quickly become overwhelming. At some point, you're going to want to know, what does all of this data tell us? Luckily, Access provides us a set of objects called queries to help us out. To run a query is to simply ask a question of your data. What customers live in California? How many products did we sell last month? What employees have earned a performance bonus? You ask a question, and a query will return the answer. At its most basic level, learning queries is less about getting the right answer and more about learning how to ask the right question. So let's suppose that we're preparing an email newsletter. The first thing that we want to ask ourselves is, well, who are we sending them to? I can find some information here in the customers table. If I double-click on it to open it, I can see I have the first and last name of my customer and the email address way over here. But there's a lot of additional information that I don't need for this particular task. For instance, there's no real reason to know their phone number and address at this time. Let's go ahead and close the customers table. Instead, what I can do is run a query that'll get me the information that I need. Here I have a customer email query right there. If I double-click on it to open it, you'll see I have the first name and last name of my customers and their email address, but I don't have that extra information that I don't need right now. If I take a look at the very bottom of my table here, I can see that I have 1,000 customers. That's the same number of customers from my customers table. So essentially what we have here is a query that just extracts these 3 columns from the customers table. So what we get back looks and functions just like a table, but it's actually called a record set. It's a temporary table that's built from the components of the underlying data tables. I can make changes here in the query. For instance, if I change Salvador Garrison's email address here, and I'll change this front part to just the word temp, and press enter, we can see if we go back into the customers table that that change has been made over here. Changes go both ways between queries and tables. Let me go ahead and change this back. s.garrison. Let's go back into the query. And if I go ahead and take a look here, we can see that that email has changed. Queries do not store any information. They simply store the instruction for how to assemble data that's already being stored in other data tables. Let's go ahead and go to the customers table and close it out. Now for our customer email campaign, let's suppose that we wanted to target just the people that live in the southern region. In this particular query, I don't have any information about our states or our regions. Let's go ahead and close this query. Now in my customers table, I had some information about the state that they live in, but I don't have any information about what region that state is from. I have that information stored in a related states table. But if I wanted to go through and figure out where each of my customers lived and what region that was, I'd have to do a lot of work. For instance, if I click on Salvador Garrison's record here and take a look at him living in the state of Georgia, then I'd have to go over here to the states table, find the state of Georgia here to realize that it's in the southern region. Now I've got 1,000 customers here. I don't want to have to do this for every single customer. That's where queries come in. Let's go ahead and close both of these tables. Down here I have another query built called Customer Email with Region. If I double click on it to open it, you'll see that I have the same 1,000 customers by looking down here at the bottom. I have my first name and last name for my customer and the email address that we saw earlier. But I'm also pulling out the related state information from the customers table and the related region name information for each state that comes from the states table. Now, if I wanted to just target the southern region of the United States, I could click on the downward pointing arrow and just do a text filter to just the southern states. When I press OK, you can see in my query results update, I can see the 412 customers that live in a southern state. Now, if that is a question that I'm going to ask over and over again, I can save myself a step of having to filter this query record set every single time. Let's go ahead and close this out. Now I have one more query already built here called Customer Email Southern Region. If I double click on it, I can see that I have the same 412 records that we just saw, but built into the instruction for this query is the filter for region name. Here, this query is just pulling out the southern region states. So while using filters on your data tables can be a quick and dirty way to gain insight into some aspect of your data, queries will often work out better for you in the long run. The ability to save and rerun a query is just one of the many advantages that we'll explore throughout this title. And as we'll see, queries will be able to provide some answers to some pretty complex requests. Of course, we only need to learn how to ask the right questions first.